Hey there, Javi here with BorrowLenses.com, and today we're going to check out the new DJI Osmo Action camera and put it head to head against the GoPro HERO7. It's a battle of the action cams. Who comes out on top? Let's find out. Since the release of the first digital Hero action cam in 2016, GoPro has been the industry standard when it comes to action cameras. With over 17 different iterations in the last 13 years, the capabilities and quality of GoPros has improved immensely, but some customers are unimpressed by the small iterative changes the last couple of generations have had. The HERO7 made a big splash last year when it introduced a new flagship feature to satisfy those detractors, a digital stabilization mode called Hypersmooth. We were impressed with what that stabilization was capable of, and even though it's not fully stable like a gimbal, it's certainly getting close. Now DJI has come out with their own action camera, the Osmo Action, which boasts huge specs and features right out of the gate. 4K at 60p, HDR video capabilities, a front-facing LCD you can use for framing, 240 frames per second in slow motion in HD, and their own digital stabilization mode they call Rocksteady. Impressive for their very first entry into the action cam space. So on paper, these cameras seem to be neck and neck, but we wanted to really put them through their paces and see whether either of these cameras pulls ahead in the race for action cam dominance. We took both cameras out to the Santa Monica Pier to do some tests. Here's what we found. The first thing we tested was the flagship feature on both cameras, stabilization. While we were familiar with GoPro stabilization, we wanted to see how it stacks up to DJI's. Both cameras are great at removing small shakes and vibrations and seem to perform similarly. We were honestly blown away at how good the Osmo Action's Rocksteady is, considering it's their first camera, but I can't say that it's that much better than the GoPros. The important takeaway was that neither of these cameras are going to correct for the extreme Z-axis bounce of walking. In these shots, I purposefully walked with complete disregard to my bouncing motion to see how much they could actually correct it. Clearly, they do some, but not enough. At the end of the day, neither of these cameras are a substitute for a gimbal. A big thing to note is that when Rocksteady is engaged on the Osmo Action, the image on the LCD seems to lag, which can cause issues when you're framing action. Once you get used to it though, it's pretty easy to account for, but we wish this wasn't something we actually had to deal with. A big difference between these two is the field of view. GoPro's HERO7 is clearly much wider than the Osmo Action, even at its widest settings. Both cameras do crop in considerably when engaging their stabilization options, but even then, the GoPro is still wider. The Osmo Action goes even further by having a linear mode that corrects the pillowing from a fisheye lens, which crops the field of view even more. I wouldn't necessarily call this a win for either camera though, since the HERO7 always has an action cam look, even when cropped in, whereas the Osmo Action camera can give you footage that doesn't scream action cam. We also wanted to test the Osmo Action's color and dynamic range capabilities. Here's a shot of the Osmo Action in its normal picture profile. It's nice and saturated, deep blacks, looks great. The HERO7's GoPro color mode does seem to retain more details in the shadows and looks generally more pleasing. The one issue with the Osmo Action's normal mode is its handling of the highlights. The sky right here immediately went to white. Not great. When shooting in their flat picture profiles, things are a little different. Here, we see that the Osmo Action's Cine-like D profile is great at handling those highlights. It even outperformed the HERO7's flat profile, which had a little bit of a harder time retaining those same highlights. The one benefit to GoPro's flat profile is that it is generally flatter than Osmo's Cine-like D, which makes recovering shadows a lot easier without losing detail. Here it is again. The Cine-like D handles highlights a bit better, but GoPro's flat profile is better in the shadows. One feature the Osmo Action has over the HERO7 is the ability to do in-camera HDR. The HDR results look amazing, especially when it comes to balancing areas of high contrast. When it comes to straight from the camera footage, the Osmo's HDR wins, although you can get similar or better results from grading both the Cine-like D or GoPro's flat footage. The one drawback when shooting HDR is that you can't use the Osmo Action stabilization features, or slow motion. Slow motion footage looks great on both, although some shots will look better than others when you take into account color profiles, and other settings on the camera. One feature the GoPro excels at is hyperlapse. Currently, the Osmo Action can't be used to create a hyperlapse. The HERO7, on the other hand, has built-in hyperlapse mode and it works great. Lastly, we tested how the footage looked when taking a selfie video. Obviously, the Osmo Action is far and away the winner here, with its ability to use the front LCD as a framing tool. Sure, the field of view of a HERO7 is so wide that you are unlikely to miss the action in selfie mode, but you also get the very distinct fisheye of a GoPro. Vloggers will feel right at home with the Osmo Action, and coupled with the stabilization features and linear field of view mode, it produces a video that looks more like vlog-style cameras as opposed to that distinct fisheye look. Both have USB-C ports to connect any accessories such as microphones. So after extensive testing, I have to say it's hard to crown a winner. In 90% of the scenarios, they're gonna perform similarly. When picking one versus the other, I think it comes down to the additional features you might need. If you need to shoot in selfie mode or don't want to do a lot of post-color, the Osmo Action's front-facing LCD and HDR mode will be key for you. If you need to do a hyperlapse, live streaming, or need a very wide angle of view, you're better off getting the GoPro HERO7. That said, I'm very impressed with the Osmo Action. For their first action camera, DJI's camera is a powerhouse. The fact that it can hang with the HERO7, which has had years and years of iterations to perfect their features, is frankly kind of shocking. What I'm most interested in seeing is where we can go from here. For the first time, GoPro has serious competition in the action camera space. Sorry, Sony. And I can only hope that this competition breeds innovation at both of these companies. So there you have it, a primer on the Osmo Action camera. Questions? Leave a comment below or check out our blog for more information. And if you want to try either of these action cameras yourself, you can rent them at BorrowLenses.com. Thanks for watching.